Kenya to Colombia, from Iraq to Korea, from Kenya to Colombia, from Iraq to Korea, in slums, in schools, in prisons, and in theaters. Every day, people gather at TEDx events around the world to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. Today, you are part of a global conversation about our shared future. So what is this TEDx? TEDx is an initiative of the TED Conference, a non-profit devoted to ideas worth spreading. We grant free licenses to allow TED-like events to spread globally. This event today is based on the TED Conference format and ideals, but is independently organized by your local community. So please make sure to thank the team of volunteers who worked so hard on today's event. It's their ideas, dedication, and time that made it all possible. It's they who booked all the speakers, and the views you'll hear today are, of course, those of those speakers, not necessarily of TEDs. But we hope their talks spark an exciting conversation among you. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for openness and for critical thinking, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you'll take out. And now, on with the show.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to TEDxYouth at Abbotsleigh 2018. My name is Natasha, and I'm the lead organizer for this event. We're so excited to have you all here today, so thank you so much for coming. And special welcome goes out to the 4 visiting schools with us here today: Holroyd High School, Knox Grammar School, Sydney Boys High, and Nagle College Blacktown. Thank you so much for coming. Also to all the special guests and the speakers here with us, thank you for being here with us today. And anyone watching on the live stream, hello, thank you so much for tuning in. I'd firstly like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land, the Darug and Guringai people. I'd like to pay my respects to the elders, both past and present, who educated their children on this land. So this is our very first TEDx event here at Abbotsleigh, and we're so excited by the wonderful lineup of speakers, performers, and videos we have ready lined up. This is largely student-driven, supported by some amazing teachers, and we're just so excited to finally present to you what we have today. We've done everything from badge making to lighting, and I hope you do enjoy the little badges sitting on your chest. As you know, the theme for today's event is DARE. DARE is about challenging your assumptions, going out of your comfort zone, and growing in general as a person. Because we thought daring is applicable in every facet of life, we thought that it will be great to have it as our theme, and we just can't wait to hear the word brought to life on stage by our awesome lineup of speakers and performers. And that brings me on to the most important people, you guys, the audience. We want you to walk away from this event being inspired, having these exciting ideas buzzing in your head, just waiting to be shared. So please do. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, share pictures and photos on social media with hashtag TEDxYouth at Abbotsleigh. Whether it's an idea that especially you resonated with or a performance that you found really, really awesome, act on these ideas, and we really want you to spark these conversations and share the word around. Because there's this amazing thing called communication, and we as humans are able to communicate and share our ideas with one another. Because research shows that when someone is standing where I am right now, sharing their ideas and speaking from the heart, every single one of your brains in this hall connects with the same areas of your brain lighting up as you share the highs and the lows of your fellow human beings. Today's event is divided into 2 sections, session 1 and session 2, with a break in between at 11 a.m. During the break, you have the opportunity to go out into the foyer, check out some stalls held by various clubs here at Abbotsleigh, take pictures in front of our media wall, and also write on our DARE chalkboard that you might have passed on your way in. Also, most importantly, I hope you can mingle with other people in your year group and also from other schools. At the end of the event, we'll be having a special TEDx panel during assembly for the Abbotsleigh girls, and there it will be hosted by an Abbotsleigh old girl, Edwina Bartholomew. They will have 4 panelists on that day during the event, which will be all from session 2. So that is Bryce Fleming, Madeline Buckner, Talitha Cummings, and Stephanie Hunt. So if you have any questions you want to ask them, keep them in mind and write it on a slip of paper. We've got a box just outside for you to drop those questions in. In the unlikely event of an emergency, we'll be evacuating to the top oval, which is on that side of the school. Please follow the directions of any Abbotsleigh staff in case that does happen. Most importantly, please remember to turn off your phones or switch them to silent in case it interrupts the event. If you do need to leave the hall for whatever reason, please do so quietly after a speaker has finished speaking. And if you do wish to come back in, it'll be really great if you just come and sit at the back of the hall so we can minimize the interruption. Also, lastly, if a speaker does happen to lose their place or maybe forget a bit about where they're going, I want you guys to show your biggest support and cheer them on, because it's not really easy standing here for 12 minutes and sharing your passion. So please do support and cheer them on in case that does happen. So, are you guys ready? I hope you enjoyed today and feel really inspired about what we have for you. And most importantly, have the courage to be able to dare to do something that you probably wouldn't think you would be able to do before you came into this room. So can you please give a welcome to Nikki, who'll be introducing our first speaker for TEDxYouth at Abbotsleigh 2018.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nikita, and I'm part of the TEDxYouth Organising Committee here at Abbotsleigh. To kick off TEDxYouth at Abbotsleigh, we will be hearing from someone whose daring journey as an immigrant is inspiring, as well as her love for her career as a criminal defence lawyer. She is a young, bold, and successful woman, breaking stereotypes every day, who advocates for human rights in her profession, but also beyond, displaying a passion for people through her charity work and through raising awareness of the gender inequalities still in our world today. The challenges she faces at work daily are confronting and emotionally draining, but only make her dare more to fight harder for justice. This is what she has to share. Could we all please give a warm welcome to Yashvi Shah?
Good morning, learners and viewers. First and foremost, it is my duty to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, both past and present. As I daringly encounter and endeavour to speak amongst you enthusiast souls, I learnt where dare derives from. Let's break down the origins of dare. The word bold comes from the Sanskrit word drishta, and according to Dr. Brené Brown in her TED talk called The Power of Vulnerability, which holds over 32 million views worldwide, the term courage is derived from the Latin word cor, which means heart. Therefore, dare equals drishta cor, which means bold, brave heart. I daily encounter 2 daring parties, the lawmakers and the lawbreakers. When you are surrounded by daring parties all around you, you sometimes question, how can I possibly be so successful if I was just the same as every single criminal defence lawyer out there? How do I dare to be different? How do I compete and achieve envious work social life balance? So I created a vision for myself and I set 2 goals in life. My first goal is to help at least one malnourished and or impoverished human being struggling to survive in a developing country. That is why 2 years ago, I became a guardian for an orphan girl in India, and I'll continue to sponsor her education and her well-being for another 10 years at least, until she becomes a leader of her own free will on her own 2 feet. My second goal is to push for constitutional recognition of our Indigenous population under the Australian Constitution. That is why I've taken it upon myself to engage in closing the gap. I'm currently assisting an Aboriginal elder pro bono to exhume the human remains of her deceased son. My pro bono client's son had passed away in incarceration, and that is not uncommon in this country. As an Aboriginal person, Aboriginal deaths in custody since the 1980s was recorded the highest in the period 2014 and 2015, according to the Institute of Criminology in Australia. It is crucial for justice to be widely accessible for our Indigenous population. The purpose for my very existence is that I voice my opinions for minority groups or disadvantaged members of our community by persisting that everyone has an equal opportunity to access advocacy and efficient advocacy in our criminal justice system. Criminal lawyers have a very high reputation to live up to, and we must follow a respectful etiquette as officers of the court. We are a close-knitted profession where our every move is almost monitored and or critiqued both inside and outside the courtroom. After all, only the daring could look into the eyes of a pedophile, a serial killer, or a gang rapist without being affected or fazed. I've seen it all. Telephone numbers being intercepted during jail calls, overseeing corruption against and amongst the law enforcement authorities, covering up for colleagues who have mental health issues that they're battling, and we sometimes become emotionless because we do what we do best. Sometimes we deal with the most dangerous criminal defense lawyers and the most dangerous criminals that you may not even want to associate with in your wildest dreams. Some of the practical challenges that I face daily include sourcing word-of-mouth referrals and building a clientele at such a young age, only 5 years as an admitted solicitor in New South Wales, and embarking upon the roles of a psychologist, a journalist, a therapist, an espionage agent, a human resource manager, an Uber driver, and a counsellor, all in the span of 24 hours, and only being paid for being a solicitor. And not to forget, I have to sometimes, or I feel the need to sometimes, increase my age when I have an intellectually stimulating conversation with my peers in my profession. In private practice, I've seen it all before my very eyes at a very young age. I've been exposed to one of my clients being murdered and shot just before his trial. I've seen unethical transactions in chambers. I've had the media rampage out at us, both my counsel and I, outside of court, to sensationalize the truth. And I've even seen evidence being tampered. That is why I have the power to control my emotions, and I don't mix my emotions or my morals with my work, and that is a dare in itself. Though I have had many clients thank me and shower me with champagne and greeting cards after we have won a trial or a case, I've also had the negative effects on social media. After losing a hearing or two, I've also encountered the flip side of having my inbox spammed with abusive text messages, my emails hacked, and my car keyed. This is, of course, the consequences of a very high demanding client who had unrealistic expectations, or their aggressive family members who were know-it-alls and could never be satisfied. But it is all a part of handling both sides with dignity. If you cannot accept the highs and embrace the lows, you're not fit to be a daring leader. I have failed as many tasks and daring responsibilities in life as I've succeeded. I turn my flaws into my lessons, which make me successful. The closest to the glitz and glam of criminal defense is sometimes experiencing my clients who are dressed in green behind the cells, who are desperate to be released from their cells, and when their loved ones count down till the days their bail and or parole is to expire. Earning this confidence and respect is in itself a dare, not an entitlement. But I'm at peace because every single day I help human beings in their day-to-day lives. I often wonder what it went inside the bright mind of Marie Biles when she became the first solicitor in New South Wales after the passing of the Women's Legal Status Act in 1918, which was 100 years ago. Or what Ada Evans felt when she became the first practicing barrister, and she was the first law graduate admitted in 1902 after being the first and then becoming the first barrister in 1921 in New South Wales, the first female barrister, I must add. They both challenged gender stereotypes and opposed male colleagues who outnumbered them in this profession. So today, the legal profession in New South Wales is still dominated by older Anglo-Saxon males who keep a powerful network to hang around. Gender inequality is as much of a direct problem as the inherent lack of cultural diversity in the legal profession in New South Wales. Nobody of the opposite sex would feel the inconvenience of deprivation that I sometimes experience or have experienced in the past. I am more educated, I'm more experienced, I'm equally skilled, if not more capable, and I am equally flexible, yet I'm still underpaid. And I will always be less paid than my male counterparts in my profession. I bear this frustration every day. I've seen and known very well that male solicitors my age, with my level of experience, would earn higher than me, even if their title was not a partner of a firm, even if their status was lower than mine. Female lawyers with equal qualifications and equal skills do not receive equal salaries because of gender pay gap, which is very existent and is embedded into our culture. And these reforms that are supported by the government and by all heads of parliament is on paper, but not in practice. Irrespective of the size of the law firm or intentions of the employer, pay gap does exist. I have fallen victim to discrimination against my gender, my race, and even my age in the legal profession. But have I done anything about it? Absolutely. My parents had raised me independently at a very young age. They preached that I am their son and I am their daughter. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. I was brought up with the upbringing that there's nothing that a male could do that a woman could not. That is why I'm here spreading this awareness, and I hope that you all do push for equal pay even in your professions, in your chosen professions in the future. I recently became a signatory to the Charter for Advancement of Women in the Legal Profession, which I'm very proud of. There are other daring legal professionals around the globe who risk their own lives to spread a strong message of national peace, social justice, political equality, and freedom of speech. I will briefly mention human rights lawyers who sacrificed their careers to improve conditions in their countries, and they executed a legacy to redirect the course of history in their countries. Their bravery, their courage, and their bold heart should be admired and approved and acknowledged by everyone here. They inspire me to develop perfections from the most imperfect situations. 2 months ago, Nasrin Sotoudeh, who holds a 2012 Sakharov Prize for Human Rights, was convicted to jail in her absence for defending women's rights in Iran in June 2018, only a few months ago. A few years ago, she was also imprisoned for at least 6 years of defending an accused who required legal representation against an authoritative state. Prison walls and abuse from state of power did not prevent her from protecting civilians against legal oppression, and I wish well for her safety. Similarly, 3 very well-known human rights lawyers became victim to kidnapping, unlawful detention, and blackmail in China. Yu Wangsheng was detained in January 2018 for advocacy against a political party, and there have been minimal updates surfaced on the internet in the past 7 months about his whereabouts. I pray for his liberty. Wang Quezang has been detained in a Chinese jail for at least 3 years, and that was because of his line of advocacy. And it is unclear as of January 2018 whether he is alive or so beaten that he has been kept in hiding. Wang Yu, who was awarded the prestigious Human Rights Prize in 2016, was also sentenced for a full-time custodial sentence for challenging cases of capital punishment and for protecting and representing victims or families of victims who suffered sexual abuse in her country. She may be released on conditional liberty, but she has lost her license to practice as a lawyer, and she can no longer be an advocate. I'm curious to find out the truth behind the torture methods used during captivity of these legal professionals and their current life situations, and I hope to see where UN has their position in this matter. I pay my respect to and tribute these human beings who used their bold hearts, unique professional skills, conviction, and ambition to resist against the inevitable. I must congratulate my peers that in 2016, according to the Law Society, 50% of female solicitors holding a practicing license was half of the population, half of the census in the legal profession. 50% of solicitors holding a practicing license were females in 2016. And that is an accomplishment, that half of my profession is the same gender as me. But this is the only beginning. This is only the beginning, so let's enforce mandatory pay between the 50-50 ratio of women to men lawyers. How do we increase the pay and the percentage of female principal solicitors to more than the current 14% statistic? And how do we decrease the global 27% pay gap for partners in law firms? We stand up for gender equality, enforce women's pay rights, and dare to negotiate women's salaries to be equal to their male opponents without women needing to prove themselves. I dare my female solicitors to quantify and match their earnings to male lawyers in my profession. In my perfect utopia, poverty would no longer exist, global hunger would be eliminated, nature would not be on the verge of extinction, slaughtered meat would be banned, Eddie Mabo would be printed on every single Australian currency, note and coin, women would earn equal pay in their fields, and all religions and human beings would coexist in a peaceful, eco-friendly world. I dare this vision, and it's my vision, and there's no harm to dream. Collectively, we have a very long way to go, but individually, I've come so far because I've dared to stand for a meaningful purpose in life. From the moment my face appeared on the television commercials for Access Community Radio, yes, that's correct, and on billboards in Auckland in 1997, my photos were all around published in newspapers when I was merely in primary school after being invited to perform a solo dance when I was 8 years old in Wellington, New Zealand, before the Indian High Commissioner at the age of 8, I realised I was already a rising star in a country or land where English was not my first language, English was my second language. In my journey, I will continue to value my self-worth and cherish my responsibilities of gambling a human being's life and liberty in my hands. For dare has become my most treasured asset. If an Indian-born female solicitor can become a self-made leader as a partner of a legal practice in Sydney, New South Wales, then anyone can take the dare to change society for the better, stand for a purpose, overturn sexism, racism, or inequality, and completely put that out of practice. I have almost won, but now I dare you.
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca. Thank you so much to Yashvi for opening TEDxYouth at Abbotsleigh. Her talk was inspiring, both in the challenges she's faced in her field and how she's overcome them during her career. Next up, I'm delighted to announce Associate Professor Catherine Berman will be joining us on stage. In 2017, she was awarded the New South Wales Premier's Woman of the Year Award. She's the current Medical Director of SCIC, the largest cochlear implant program in Australia, and was the third woman to qualify as an ear, nose and throat surgeon in New South Wales. In 2016, she celebrated 1,000 cochlear implant surgeries, making her Australia's most experienced practicing surgeon. Please welcome her.
Thank you. I too would like to acknowledge traditional owners of this land who educated their children here. Now, I'd like to by introducing you to Sarah. This is a video of Sarah when she was just 5 years old and she's about to start school.
What else is on your uniform?
And my hat colour is green too, because I don't really like a colour uniform. I really want to wear my own clothes because it's better than uniform, better than uniform.
Oh. And what colour would your dress be?
Blue, pink, yellow, purple.
Now, I'm sure you'll all agree that Sarah is super cute and very chatty. And you will agree with the idea of not having a school uniform. But what is remarkable about that video is that Sarah was born profoundly deaf. She had no hearing whatsoever. Hearing aids could not help her to hear. So I performed cochlear implant surgery for her when she was less than 1 year old. And through the cochlear implant, she has learned to listen, to hear, and to speak normally. This is the modern day miracle, a cochlear implant where otherwise she would have lived in a world of silence. A daring decision for her parents to make, to decide when she was just a baby to have surgery. But what a fantastic decision, because it's meant that she could learn to hear and speak normally. Let me tell you a bit about hearing and the cochlear. Sound waves travel through your ear canal and are picked up by your eardrum. The middle ear magnifies that mechanical movement of the sound waves, and it's sent into the inner ear. The inner ear takes that mechanical energy and changes it to electrical energy. And we then have a signal going up the hearing nerve, through to the brain, and we hear that as conscious sound, as spoken language or music or various sounds. Now, the cochlear implant is able to mimic our natural hearing if something doesn't work, if our inner hair cells don't work, if the transmission between the inner hair cells and the nerves don't work, or if the nerves don't work well. So the cochlear implant can compensate for that and can send that signal up through to the brain. The cochlear implant is made up of two components. There's an external component that picks up sound, changes it to a digital code and sends it through to the internal component. The internal component then sends that digital code down into that little array inside the cochlea and sets off a signal on our hearing nerve, and we can hear. Now, a cochlear implant is for people of all ages. So for Sarah, she was born profoundly deaf, and so she received a cochlear implant as a little baby at about age 11 months old and learned to hear and speak through it. For Malala Yousafzai, she was born with normal hearing, but lost hearing due to trauma from being shot by the Taliban. And so she received a cochlear implant when she was a teenager. And then I put a patient of mine, Cecil, there, who had slow progressive hearing loss over the years. And for him, he received a cochlear implant at the age of 92, and there he is that night about to have his dinner, looking very chirpy. So everybody has their own timing, and a cochlear implant can help people of all ages. Now, hearing loss is a major problem. In Australia, 1 in 6 people have hearing loss. That's 3.6 million people in Australia. And 150,000 people have severe or profound hearing loss. That's where they would do better with the cochlear implant than they do with their hearing aids. They would hear more through the cochlear implant. The World Health Organization suggests that about 5% of the world are living with disabling hearing loss. That's 466 million people, and of which 34 million are children. Now, the impacts of hearing loss are far-reaching. For children, it means that they often can't learn to speak and have difficulty communicating with friends and family. If you're a child and you can't learn to speak, then you might not actually get an education, because for many places in the world, they only have spoken language schools. So if you can't hear, you can't learn to speak, you actually don't go to school, and that's a terrible thing. For adults, they might find it harder to use the phone, to hear people in meetings. They're having to lip read and guess what people are saying, and so they feel exhausted at the end of the day. And for the elderly, hearing loss leads to social isolation, depression, and is an independent risk factor for dementia. So we really need to raise awareness that people don't have to suffer in silence, that we can offer them more, get them hearing better with a cochlear implant. Now, we have this wonderful technology, the cochlear implant. Professor Graham Clark invented the Australian device, which is used worldwide. We have Australian Hearing, a government-funded body that provides free hearing aids to children and to pensioners. And we have a society that wants people to have good access to hearing and to lots of things, and we've started the NDIS here in Australia. But even in Australia, with arguably the best hearing care in the world, only 1 in 10 people who would benefit from a cochlear implant have received one. It's just a drop in the ocean. Why is this so? Why have not more people been able to be benefited by having a cochlear implant? Now, these reasons are probably very multifactorial, but one of the main reasons is that people just don't realise. They don't realise that they could hear more with a cochlear implant, that there is some solution to their hearing problem. So we really need to raise awareness for people to understand that they could benefit from a cochlear implant. Now, my patients all follow their own unique individual paths. They have their own hearing journey, and the cochlear implant is only a moment in time. And for them, their journey with hearing doesn't stop there. They have to learn to listen through the cochlear implant, to retrain their brain to pay attention to sound. But for you all have your own journey, your own unique path that you will follow and that you will make, and that it will make you the person that you are. Everyone takes a daring leap into the unknown, daring to grow as people. What do I mean by daring to grow? Well, I think first you should be curious. Find out about things. Never stop learning. Try new things. Sometimes you will fail. But curiosity means that you will never be bored. You will always be learning, and you will be open to new ideas and new experiences. Be a positive influence. So whether you're going to be a positive influence as an individual, like me, helping one patient at a time, or maybe you being kind to a friend, or dare I say, being kind to somebody who's not your friend, or you can be a positive influence at a community level, a country level, or at a worldwide level, just like Sir Graham with his cochlear implant. Sorry, this is making a funny noise. And thirdly, I suggest take opportunities. You don't know what fantastic paths they will lead to. You will meet amazing people, have unique experiences, and the opportunities that you take will really person and bring out your strengths. Now, we all have a unique path. I never imagined I was at high school that I would be a surgeon, a cochlear implant surgeon. In fact, when I was at school, I'd not even heard of a cochlear implant. And that does confirm how ancient I am, guys. When I was at school, I loved doing craft. I was one of 4 girls doing industrial arts at a co-ed high school. I changed to a girls' school in year 9 and had to do sewing. Now, was that all a waste of time? No way. For a surgeon, I could use a drill, I could use a hammer, I was good at putting things together and could see things in 3D. And on top of that, I could sew neatly. So nothing is a waste of time. Our paths are often winding with unplanned detours. When I was a junior doctor, I knew I wanted to become an ear, nose and throat surgeon, an ENT. I changed hospitals so that I could do a junior ENT position, called a resident. But because I'd sat my surgical first part exam quite early, I was promoted a level to a neurosurgical registrar job. That was extremely scary, very exhausting, but it was fantastic. I really learnt so much in that time. Next year, I missed out on being on a training scheme positioned to become an ENT surgeon. But I was super lucky. I got a job as a non-trainee ENT registrar at RPA and met some of the most wonderful people who mentored me and were great surgeons, great teachers, and cared for their patients brilliantly. And decades later, I am still so grateful to them. Finally, the next year, I got on to the training scheme to become an ENT registrar. And I was able to take full opportunity of that position straight from the beginning, because I'd already done the neurosurgical registrar job and the ENT registrar job. Thanks. And so I was able to take the opportunities right from the beginning and really enjoy and participate in the operations. So all experience is helpful. I really encourage you to take these opportunities because it will build the person that you're going to be and it will build on your strengths. So finally, look after your hearing. Noise exposure is the most common cause of hearing loss, and these days it's commonly due to kids having their music up way too loud, being blasted by your earphones or earbuds into your ears. So look after your hearing, Don't have your music up too loudly. And then hopefully, in the future, you won't have to see an ENT surgeon like me.
Thank you so much for Associate Professor Dr. Catherine Berman for her amazing talk about cochlear implants and how interesting her journey has come. So next we've got our first performance for TEDxYouth at Abbotsleigh 2018. We will be having Elizabeth McLean and Kelly Bridgeland, who are representatives from the Abbotsleigh Sport Aerobics team. Only last Friday they competed at the New South Wales Aero Schools State Champions. And not only did they get the highest marks and won gold, but Abbotsleigh came away as the overall state champions. Please welcome Kelly and Lizzie to tell us more about their performance.
I'm a dancer who does everything from ballet to contemporary. I started sports aerobics last year in level 3 pairs, and I'm now the sports aerobics captain for Abbotsleigh. I enjoy sports aerobics because of the challenge it presents and the constant possibility to improve.
I'm a retired gymnast who did sports aerobics in junior school from levels 3 to 6, and I've returned this year after a 5-year break. I enjoy sports aerobics because it is a completely weird blend of different sports such as cheerleading, dance and gymnastics.
Our results on Friday qualified us and many of the other Abbotsleigh girls for the Australian National Aero Schools Aerobics Championships on the Gold Coast in September.
For both of us, it is our second time at Nationals, and we are aiming to prove our performances, scores and placings.
Yeah. Things is just read it straight from there. Yeah, yep, that's fine. Yeah, yep, that's fine. Yep, let's do it. Okay, yeah, I'm fine. Okay. I'm sitting on a bus and I'm staring out the window. I'm wondering if I turned the downstairs lights out because the energy bill last quarter was through the roof. And I'm going to be in real trouble if I've left those lights on. Did I flick that switch? Ring, 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 ring. Ring, 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 ring. Why is my boss calling me this early? Ring, 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 ring. Did I have a court appearance that I forgot about this morning? Ring, 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 ring. Did I leave the downstairs lights on and forget court appearance and set the microphone off? Hello? Alana, it's Tony, your boss. You've got an hour to do a TED talk. You good? Mrs. Ware will call you shortly. Well, I can't dare to do a TED talk. I literally have nothing to say. There's nothing interesting about my life. The most interesting thing is whether or not I left the downstairs lights on. Well, I mean, I guess there's the time that I dared to audition for that performing arts school in Hollywood when I was 19. You know, that one that Kirk Douglas and Paul Rudd and Kim Control went to, but I'd never get into that kind of school, would I? I'm standing in a pub in Galway, and there's a big fat chicken schnitzel in front of me. I love chicken schnitzel. It's really good mushroom gravy too. You know when it's good because you can actually see the mushroom in it, so you know it's a legit mushroom. Tomorrow they're holding auditions for that acting school in Hollywood, but auditions are in London and I'm in Ireland. And that's why I agreed to go on this little Irish jaunt, because I knew I wouldn't be back in London in time to audition. Because there's no point. I'll never get into that school. It'll just be a big fat waste of time and money. What's the time? Oh, it's 10:30 p.m. and the last plane leaves Shannon Airport at around midnight. Why am I in a taxi with my passport? Where's all my luggage? Did I just leave that in the hotel room? One ticket to London Gatwick, please. I'm standing at the post box. I can see that there's a big envelope inside, but I don't want to dare open it. I can see this little starry logo in the corner of the envelope, and I'm expecting to read, "Thank you for your time in auditioning. Unfortunately, on this occasion, blah, blah, blah." But it doesn't. I open it up, and there's visa information in there, like student visa information. I'm going to be a student of the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in Hollywood, Los Angeles, California, like the United States of America, the world, the universe. I'm standing in a toilet block in a Mexican restaurant. And I can hear the girl next to me in the cubicle. She's peeing and she's taking a really long time. Because I'm already washing my hands by the time she gets out, even though I went in way before her. So I look up and I see Drew Barrymore walk out of the cubicle. I'm a little starstruck, so I barely notice she's just in tracksuit pants and this big, baggy, oversized hoodie. She's a professional, so she doesn't react to the microphone going off like that. So this woman just looks like a regular person. She just takes a hand towel, and I'm still there, still washing my hands over and over, because I don't want her to think I'm not hygienic, right? She takes a hand towel, and seeing that she's blocking the dispenser from me, and that's probably why I'm just standing there creepily washing my hands for a very long time, she passes one to me. And I say, "Thank you, Drew. I love you." And she does this little bemused, "Hey, Aussie, I love you too." And I tell everyone after that, Drew Barrymore and I love each other. I'm waiting in the bar line at intermission of a student play. Is that Gandalf from Lord of the Rings? Yeah, that is Sir Ian McKellen. Only I don't remember he's been knighted, and he is a sir. So I just waltz on up to him and I pat him on the back and I say, "Oh, hi, Ian. Hi, it's Alana," like he knows who I am. And then I realise myself and say, "I'm a person who wants an autograph." He's shocked, and so am I. I've totally forgotten myself, and he has too, so he just signs my autograph. I'm standing in the grocery line, waiting for the guy in front of me to finish up with his items. His shopping trolley is so full, and I'm starting to stress out. I'm going to be late for class at the American Academy. A young girl comes over and asks for my autograph. Can this be real? Can this actually be happening? I smile and ask if she's seen the play I'm currently performing in. You know, it's a student play, but it's pretty good. And she says, "Who are you? I'm talking to Johnny Knoxville." The man in front of me turns around and scribbles down his autograph. "Oh, of course, Johnny Knoxville. Yeah, that makes sense. More so than my student play." How can it be that I'm living this life? How did I get to Hollywood at 19 years old? 1 year ago, I was sitting in the Abbotsleigh Senior School Concert Hall, wondering what my life was going to look like after school. I hadn't dared dream I would be living in Hollywood, attending a performing arts school, and shopping for groceries alongside celebs. So what does it mean to dare? Well, the Oxford Learner's Dictionary transitive definition defines it as being to persuade somebody to do something dangerous, difficult, or embarrassing so they can show that they're not afraid. So you need to be bold, and you need to be ambitious, and you need to have courage. But daring to dream is kind of crazy, and it's a bit scary. It's scary to walk up to Sir Ian McKellen and introduce yourself as, "Hi Ian, it's Alana," you know? But it's easy to be daring when you've got a network of people around you who have your back. One of my first ever memories of being on this earth was working out my place in relation to other people and other people's place in relation to me. I recall being very young and sharing a room with my twin brothers, James and Sean. I was still so young that James was sleeping in a cot. We would talk to each other after lights out, which wasn't allowed. And after a few warnings, we would hear Dad's angry tone coming down the hall, telling us he was going to shut the door if we didn't stop talking. We were so freaked out at being left alone in the dark, we used to kick the door after the door had been shut, so that Mum would come and open it for us. James couldn't really get out of his cot very easily. So it was really up to Sean and I to assume this task. After some time, I got to learn that whoever was not under their doona cover when Dad came in to tell us off would endure the bane of his wrath. So I started to kick the door, run over to James's cot, rip the doona off of him, race back into my bed, and watch Dad drive over to James's cot and tell him off. And I'm not proud of this. It was pretty harsh, but the fear of Dad's anger overrode any trace of guilt I might have had. So shortly after several of these incidents took place, James convinced Sean and I that we should jump on top of Mum's blue car roof to climb into the roof of our house where she stored all manner of her trinkets, her special items. So Sean and I busied ourselves passing items down to James, who couldn't reach the roof because he was a bit bigger. Hours later, Dad called us into the garage, lined us all up, and measured our foot size against the footprints on the roof's car. That sneaky little dibber-dobber James had thrown Sean and I in it as retribution for the Doona incident. But over time, my stealthy lone wolf tactics receded as our shared experience nurtured camaraderie and loyalty. I recall forcing James into one of my floral green dresses, Mum's yellow sun hat, pearls and high heels, to star as the mother in a play my childhood friend and I had written called The Creepy Babysitter. This is where my acting career really took off. This particular episode was to be filmed for my friend's dad, so we were going all out in applying Mum's red lipstick to James, who sat patiently as I tried various different shades of rouge. The only stipulation he gave me was that I was never allowed to tell his girlfriend, Emily Mowat, who he later married in the school playground aged 7, and I kept my word. Even though I presided over the marriage, I never disclosed to Emily that she was marrying a cross-dresser, true to my word. Because that's what it means to be part of a pack. You can have a go at each other, but don't dare let anyone else say a bad word about it. One of my favourite authors, Rudyard Kipling of The Jungle Book, captures it well. Now this is a law of the jungle, as old and as true as the sky, and the wolf that shall keep it may prosper, but the wolf that shall break it must die. As the creeper that girdles the tree trunk, the law runneth forward and back, for the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. It is only because of my pack that I have gained enough strength, stability, and security within myself to brave huge transitions in my life, to dare to move to England at the age of 18, spending a year working and travelling around there before moving to Los Angeles at 19 and being there for a number of years. Despite this being one of the most exciting times in my life, I felt the pain of separation from my secure network as I battled homesickness, loneliness, loss of friendships, and loss of familiarity. I'm standing at the post office. There's a homeless woman walking through the door. She's muttering to herself. She only got the part because she's pretty. She's not even a good actress. And right there, that was the moment that I decided. That was the hardest decision of my life, deciding to come home, to call my time in LA, to realize I didn't want to be defined by, that girl who went to Hollywood anymore. What is she even doing now? I didn't want to be a 40-year-old waitress still trying to make it. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I just knew where I wanted to be. Home. Daring to dream is scary, but daring to wake up can be even scarier. I had made the decision to move to Hollywood with all the support of my entire network. I recall receiving texts from well-wishers I didn't even know before I set off for LA. Would I be disappointing a whole raft of strangers, not to mention my family and friends, if I were to decide this life is no longer for me? LA doesn't feel fun anymore. It feels tired and lonely. I want to go home, but I don't want to fail. I'm sitting in my kitchen in LA. I'm on the phone to my mum. She tells me it's time that my very old cat be put to sleep. I hang up the phone and I begin to cry. Then I really begin to cry. And then I start howling. Bella is so old, Alana, and you haven't even lived with that cat for over 4 years, since you left for England and before you moved to LA. But for some reason in this moment, she's all that is home to me. I decide I must risk the title of failure and dare to give up on what was once my dream and move home. I'm walking through the airport gates. I'm scared there won't be anyone awaiting my arrival because I've told Mum the wrong day because of the time difference. I look up. There's a whole group of people waving and smiling. There's a welcome home banner and a balloon. There's my pack. I can dare to do anything with my pack. I'm sitting at the kitchen table, filling out forms for law school. I'm sitting on an aeroplane, bound for the University of Oxford. I'm sleeping in a dorm room at New College, Oxford, poring over international human rights law textbooks. I'm being admitted to the Supreme Court of New South Wales. And I'm standing in front of a group of young women on a TED stage. Maybe some men too, because it looks like there might be some guys here. Your bright futures are in front of you, and I am promising you that if you all keep your pack close by, you can dare to do anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alana Pike, for giving an awesome talk, especially last minute. Can you believe that she wrote all of that in Uber on the way here? So we're running a little bit ahead of schedule. So before I introduce our next item, it will be a video which we got from TEDx Sydney. So this video is called Girl Cabinet, and it's an inspiring short film that was first shown at TEDx Sydney 2018, which a few of us were lucky to be a part of. So with special permission from the filmmaker, Heather Hilliard, and TEDx Sydney, we're able to show this video with you today, and I hope that you find it just as inspiring and interesting as we all thought it was. And we thought that the content of this video, which was about, daring to follow what you believe and daring to go into politics, for example, as a young girl, we thought that fit our theme perfectly. So since we're running a bit ahead, we'll soon be watching the video, so please sit tight.
Kujagas. Yubali Dialang Bor. Ninura Ninura Ninura. Yalanga Nainang Gurgu Mujingo. Welcome, I call you all friends.
So Girl Cabinet, I like that. Okay.
Yeah, I think we should be able to share opinions without judgment. Yeah. It's something that's really special about this group.
We want to be able to fit in, but we also want to stand out.
And with difference that can encompass, like race, age, gender. In government today, you don't really see much diversity in all sectors.
Australia has had their first woman Prime Minister. There should be more women in political parties. Even though we have come a long way, we still have a lot more to go.
I think it would be great if Girl Cabinet had ambassadors, so strong women in the world that we can look up to and aspire to be like. Malala stood up for all women and made sure that they had education that was equal to men's education.
Before anything else, the environment will catch up to us. Me not choosing to eat meat or any animal products, I can do something about it. And that was such an empowering thing to be I can make an impact.
Through music, through art, through writing, people can be inspired and you become more open-minded to other people's ideas. As well as emotional beings, we're creative beings, and we come up with all these cool ways to survive.
I just like to go out there and dance and sing. I get really excited and I don't get nervous at all because every song has a different story carrying on the generations before us and the generations that are to come. if you're happy and if you're sad and if you're angry and if you're like, every emotion, you can just show it in the dance.
I've had a lot of very heated discussions with male teachers about, you know, women genetically aren't as strong and things like that. Guys at my school will say, if feminism is about equality, then why isn't it called like equalitism? Feminism started as a women's movement, and so it's bringing equality to people who don't actually have that power yet.
Let's go flying. Meeting all the girls this week has really opened my eyes to the amazing people in my age group and girls around me, and it's really inspiring and encouraging to know that there are so many passionate and determined people that are so willing to do things to help the world and make it a better place.
Hi everyone, wow, what an amazing video. My name's Liz, and our next speaker is very, very inspiring. Her name is Steph Hunt, whose photos we are lucky enough to see here today. Through her career as a journalist, she has visited the most interesting and remote places from Syria to Myanmar, learning so many valuable lessons along the way as she's traveled with her husband and her camera. Her incredible photos have been featured in broadcasts globally and have also been shortlisted in the National Geographic. They say pictures tell 1,000 words, and Steph's photographs in the stories they portray say even more. Please welcome Steph Hunt.
It works. Okay. I am a journalist with a serious travel problem. I am so addicted. I have the bug so badly. I love nothing more than just packing my bag and going anywhere all over the world. And over the years, I have been to some of the most eye-opening places, and I'm very, very lucky to experience incredible, incredible things. And I've camped with some of the most remote tribes in Africa. Now, it might sound like I'm bragging, but really, I promise you, I am not bragging. I'm just really, really shocked, and I'm quite surprised. I grew up in the bush in northern New South Wales, so in Gunnedah, and then on a farming property up in Armidale. And when I was a kid, I would get so homesick. Just staying in town at a friend's house, super, super homesick. And when I was in year 5, our entire class got to go to the Gold Coast, and they went to Wet n Wild and SeaWorld. I stayed at home. I was way, way too scared. So when I look back now at how that scared little homesick bush girl got to travel all over the world and become an international journalist, there's not really one major moment that changed everything for me. Instead, it was just lots of small and constant movements. I constantly moved forward. Got the photo for you. Now, I was very nervous at my first job in TV. I was in regional New South Wales. I was a journalist. And I thought, I'm just a girl from the bush. What do I know about being a journalist? And I felt the same way when I moved to a bigger city. And then I moved to London and worked for the BBC. And I thought, I'm just a girl from Australia. What do I know about being a journalist? And then I moved to the Middle East, worked for Al Jazeera. And I thought, I'm just a girl who's from Australia, who's worked in London. What do I know about being a journalist? But I kept going. And I'm so glad I did, because as a result, I was able to travel the world and meet very, very interesting people. And I also learnt some very valuable lessons along the way. Now, my first lesson is that there's no such thing as normal. We as humans are also wonderfully different, yet in so many ways, we are exactly the same. Now, there are obviously language barriers and stark cultural differences, but we all have the same desire for health and happiness, and we want the people that we love to be okay, and we just want to get through life the best that we can. And my example is the Suri tribe. Now, the Suri live on the border of Ethiopia and South Sudan in one of the most isolated and treacherous locations on the planet. Now, my husband, he's a journalist as well, and he and I have been working in breakfast television and getting up at crazy hours, and we were quite tired. We thought, okay, we want a break. So we quit our jobs, we packed our bags, and suddenly we were in the depths of Ethiopia. Now, it's a very long and bumpy 3-day journey to get to the Suri tribe from the capital of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. It's 4-wheel drive access only. It's constant flat tyres. And for part of the way, we were accompanied by armed guards carrying like big AK-47s in the car with us. But the trip is worth it. The Suri men, as you can see, the boys and the men, they paint their faces with really bright clay. And they do this to sort of try and protect themselves from neighbouring tribes who often try and come in and attack. And they do this to protect their families and also to impress the ladies. And then the women of the Suri tribe, they wear clay lip plates, as you can see here. And the plates, they're a symbol of beauty, of dedication to their tribe, and also they're a sort of a social status. So the bigger the lip plate, the bigger the dowry that the women can expect when they get married for their family. So a really big lip plate might get the family, 60 cows. A smaller lip plate might get 40 cows. And the way it works is that the girls, by the time they're 16, normally this process is in place. And what happens is a small cut is made just below their lip. The 2 front teeth are knocked out. And then a small little clay, kind of like a little clay disc, is inserted into the lip. And over time, a bigger plate is put in. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And like a sort of a black Vaseline is applied around the disc to help pop it in. Now, this can be a little confronting, right? And to be honest, when I was there, I wasn't really sure how I was meant to feel and meant to think. But this is where those life lessons kick in, those life lessons that I learned through travel that I was telling you about. So the women are so different to anything that I had ever seen in my entire life. But they were also so similar to most mums that I know. They're very dedicated to their kids. They were constantly getting food for their kids, preparing food and hanging out with the other mums. And it made me realise that we really do have similarities. And the funny thing was, when these women saw me, they thought I was weird. They thought I was so strange. And they were really obsessed with my white skin and freckles and my blonde hair, and they had never seen anything like me at all. So I learnt that it's very important to dare to open our minds, and it's important to dare to think differently. And the theme of today's talk is dare, And these women, every day, they dare to stay alive. They dare to keep their culture alive. They dare to keep their kids alive. And they taught me the importance of opening our mind and daring to think differently. And that is so inspirational. Okay, the second lesson from travel is that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's not limited to stereotypes of people that we see in magazines and social media. Now, the Maasai women that you can see here, they ooze confidence and power and beauty, and they know their culture, and they know who they are, and they're so proud of who they are. And we met the Maasai women at Amboseli National Park in Kenya. We met them at sundown, and they live, you can't really see, but just behind, they live right near Mount Kilimanjaro, which is a beautiful, big, mighty mountain in Africa. And there are wild elephants sort of roaming by, and other wild beasts roaming by. It was incredible. And, excuse me, and the Maasai, they taught me how to do their traditional dancing, like their jumping and dancing. And as they did this, they had that big, beautiful, like colourful beaded earrings, and they were swinging, and they had big neck discs, and they were swaying, and their bodies were moving. And the Maasai women taught me that it's possible to be very strong, to have a real strength, but also to have a real grace and a real beauty. Now, these women, they know exactly who they are. They know their culture, and they're very proud of both. And you won't find their faces on the front covers of magazines or as social media influencers, but they are among the most beautiful that I've ever seen. Now, we met Maid Ter. She was in a stilted hut about an hour's paddle, a canoe paddle, along Inle Lake in central Myanmar. And like most Padawang women, she received 10 copper neck discs when she was 8 years old. And the older she got, the more neck discs that were sort of applied. And by the time she was 25, she had 25 neck rings. And similar to the Suri women and their lip plates, I wasn't too sure how I was meant to think. I was like, I don't know. They're beautiful, but is she in pain? So I asked her, and Maid Ter is now in her 60s, and she said that the rings, they don't hurt. She wasn't forced to wear them. And they didn't help her find a husband. Basically, she wears them because she thinks they make her feel beautiful. And she wants people to know that she's a proud Padawang woman. So Maid Ter taught me that to know who you are and to be proud of who you are is beautiful. And she also reminded me to open my mind and to dare to think differently. Now, I want to show you the most beautiful and graceful woman I have ever met in my entire life. This is Tor Donna Howe, and she's a Buddhist nun. And I saw her, she was just squatting in the shade at Old Bagan markets, again in Myanmar. And it was a really, really hot day, so she just had that hand towel that you can see over her shaved head, and she was just watching the world go by. She was very content and very happy, a little bit elderly and frail, but very, very, very happy and beautiful. And I asked if I could take her photo, and her whole face just lit up. She's like, yes. So I took the photo, and afterwards, she looked me right in the eye, and she shook my hand, and she said, "May Buddha be with you wherever you may go." And she was so happy. And I know people who have everything they could possibly want, and so much more. They've got everything, and they're so unhappy. Yet these women, they have so few material goods, and really, really big life challenges, but they're happier than most people I know. And finally, the third lesson that I have learnt through travel, resilience. It's everything. Life can be so tough, but we are even tougher, and we should never forget who we are. Now, when I had malaria, I was such a sook. Complete sook. I was in Ghana at the time, in West Africa, and I think I got malaria from a pesky mosquito in neighbouring Ivory Coast. And signs that you have malaria include aches and pains and wild dreams and a metallic taste on your tongue. It's as if you've been sucking coins. It's so gross, really disgusting. So I had all these signs, and unlike lots of people, I was lucky enough to be able to go to a hospital. So I went to the hospital and I was moaning, poor me, I've got malaria. My goodness, life is so hard. And I finally saw a nurse, and I said to her, yeah, gosh, I have malaria, my goodness. And the nurse looked at me and she said, take your medicine and you'll be fine. You are so lucky. And the nurse said, as I stand here and treat you, I have malaria. I am your nurse. I have malaria and I'm helping you. And then she said, look at all those people out in the waiting room. They all have malaria. Everyone has malaria. You are so lucky. You can go home and you can be treated. You're fine. And she was exactly right. It made me realize how resilient that nurse was, how resilient the people of West Africa and those around me were, how resilient the tribes that I've met really, really are. Now, when I was thinking about what to say in this talk today, I was struggling to kind of work out, trying to get all my ideas together and sort of suss out whether I even had anything that was worth sharing with you. It can be quite scary getting up here and talking. And so I put a few ideas down, and I'm very close to my mum and I value her opinion, so I sent them through to her and I said, I'm just struggling, I don't know what I'm writing. And so Mum had a read, and then she phoned me and she said, sweetheart, what you've written, it's fine, but it just doesn't sound like you. It doesn't sound like what you would normally say. And she was exactly right. I was trying too hard to sort of, I don't know what I was trying to say, but I was trying too hard to be something that I wasn't. And I should have just backed to myself and just written from the heart. And she was exactly right. So I think we need to learn to be more vulnerable. This is what I learned anyway. We need to be more vulnerable. We need to back ourselves and believe in ourselves. Now, I have a 17-month-old toddler named Clementine. And toddlers are really, really funny. Like we've watched her learn how to roll over. We've watched her learn how to crawl and then take her first sort of wobbly step and start walking. And toddlers never ever act in fear. They never sort of look at other toddlers and suss out what they're doing and compare themselves to other toddlers. They just do their thing. And they constantly fall over, and bang, they just like climb up. They get back up again. They just do their thing. And we probably can't really remember it, but we were once all toddlers too. So like toddlers, and like the people that I've met around the different tribes, we need to back ourselves. We need to believe in ourselves. We need to get up and just keep on going. And don't let me stand here and tell you what to think and what to say. We need to form our own opinions. We need to ask questions and have our own mind. And we need to dare to open our minds and constantly dare to think differently. And like a good journalist, we need to always remember that there are two sides to a story. Thank you.
amazing Steph for finishing off session 1 today. We are about to have our break, so during the break, I encourage you to stretch your legs, eat some food, and most importantly, kind of interact with the activities that we have in the hub area. I want you to share your thoughts on the dare wall that we have just outside, take pictures with the media wall, and also if you do have any questions, write it on the piece of paper that we have provided and slip it into the box. So can I please get everyone back by 11:25 for session 2, and have a great break. Okay, hello, welcome back to session 2. I hope you had a great break. I hope you've talked to some people, talked to speakers, talked to each other, ate some food, all that. Okay, so to kick off session 2, we've got a wonderful performance lined up ready for you. We've got Kamea Kupawati and Imogen McIntyre ready to sing a wonderful song for us. If you were in the Year 11 corridor in the past week or so, you may have heard them rehearsing, and they have absolutely beautiful voices, and I'm just going to hand over to them now. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Kamea.
And I'm Imogen, and we're going to sing an acoustic duet of the song X's and O's by Elle King. This song is obviously originally sung as a solo piece, but we've transformed it to allow it to suit our individual style and also so we can sing it together.
And the way that we've done this is we've incorporated a bunch of harmonies and we're using a guitar instead of a backing track.
Kamea and I started singing together at the end of last year when she came to Abbotsleigh, and it's been really good because now I've got someone to sing with all the time, so yeah.
Yeah, well, we hope you enjoy. We're really excited to perform for you because it's something we're really passionate about, so yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I had me a boy, turn him into a man.
Showed
him all the things that he didn't understand. Whoa.
Whoa. And then I let him go. Now there's one in California who's been cursing my name. Cause I found me a better lover in the UK. Hey. Until I made my getaway. 1, 2, 3, they gotta run back to me. Cause I'm the best baby that they never gotta keep. 1, 2, 3, they gotta run back to me. They always wanna come, but they never wanna leave. X's and the O's, they haunt me. Like girls, they want me to make them all, and they won't let go. X's and O's.
I had a summer lover down in New Orleans. Kept him warm in the winter, left him frozen in the spring.
My, how the seasons go by. I get high and I love to get low, so the hearts keep breaking and the heads just roll. You know, that's how the story goes.
1, 2, 3, they're gonna run back to me.
Cause I'm the best baby that they never gotta keep. 1, 2, 3, they gotta run back to me.
They always wanna come, but they never wanna leave my exes.
And the O's, they haunt me. Like girls, they want me to make them all, and they won't let go. X's and 1, 2, 3, they gotta run back to me. They always wanna come, but they never wanna leave my exes. And the O's, they haunt me. Like girls, they want me to make them all, and they won't let go. X's and O's.
Sorry, that's okay.
Didn't you all just love that incredible performance from Kimmy and Imi? I definitely did. Thank you so much for entertaining us with that beautiful cover of X's and O's by Elle King. My name is Emily, and our next speaker is one I am especially excited for. After struggling with his weight and overall health during school, Dr. Bryce Fleming has transformed himself in a truly inspiring way. He tried every remedy and every possible solution, but it wasn't until he discovered that health comes from the inside out rather than the outside in that his true transformation began. Since then, Bryce has become a chiropractor, author, father, and professional speaker. He is committed to changing the perception of health whilst inspiring and helping others, and his message is an important one. Bryce's health journey in challenging individuals to create an alternative health outlook through his practice Alignment Health is truly daring. Please give it up for Bryce.
Thank you. So, yes, as you heard, my childhood was a bit of a challenge. I was quite overweight, I struggled with my energy levels, I couldn't concentrate very well at school. I found it hard to do simple things like just doing one lap of the oval or even doing one push-up. It was about the age of 17 where I found myself in an MRI machine, listening to some loud thuds as this big machine was scanning my brain looking for a tumour. Now, being about the age of 17, which is probably roughly the same age as some of you in this room, this was quite a daunting and terrifying experience, not knowing what would happen if they did find a tumour in my brain. The specialist came up to me and he said, "Look, we've got some really good news. You haven't got a tumour." And of course, I was excited, I was ecstatic, and I was over the moon. But, because there's always a but, isn't there? But the reason why you're struggling with your weight and your health and your energy levels and your concentration, the reason why you're struggling so much is that you suffer from a condition called low testosterone, or what's known as hypogonadism. Now, as a 17-year-old boy, I thought I knew everything, right? But I had no idea what that meant, but I know it didn't sound good. He then came up to me and he presented a rather large needle to me. And he said, "Look, in order to be well, you need to take this needle and you've got to put it in your butt every couple of weeks." So I looked at the needle and then I looked at him. And I looked back at the needle and then I looked at him again. Now, I didn't know that at the time, but this was a pivotal moment in my life. Because I said, "Look, thank you so much, but I'm going to pass. And I'm going to try and find another way." So this was me and my girlfriend at the time, well, my now wife, Alison. As you can see, I was still pretty unwell. I was still quite overweight. I think I was about 108 kilos at the time. I struggled with my energy levels still. I still found it hard to concentrate. I don't know how, but I was bumbling my way through university. And I learned a principle at one stage. And it was something that absolutely transformed my life. And I went from this to this in about 8 months. No needles, no surgery, no drugs. Now, I'm not saying that drugs and surgery are a bad thing. And I'm not saying that our medical system is bad in any way. In fact, if I get shot or fall off a building or have a serious infectious disease, or if that happens to me and my family, please, give us all the life-saving drugs possible. And I'm eternally grateful that we have that system in place. However, if you go to the hospitals and you go to the private clinics around, unfortunately, it's not those things that they're dealing with most of nowadays. It's what we call lifestyle choices or chronic illness that's really the big problem, how we eat, move, and think. So I'm not so sure that the model that we have in place with our healthcare system is the right model for today. It's pretty powerful, isn't it? So I started asking different questions. I stopped asking questions around, well, what symptom does a person have? What diagnosis should they be given? What treatment should they have? And I started asking questions along the lines of, can the person heal themselves? And if they can heal themselves, what is required in order to assist that person to heal? We know the body can heal, don't we? Like if you get a cut on your arm, you don't have to do anything to heal it. As long as you don't chop your arm off, your body's going to know what to do. In fact, you're constantly repairing every single cell and every tissue in your body all the time. I mean, you'll have 200 hairs that'll fall out of your head every day, and within a couple of years, you'll have a completely new head of hair. You'll have a brand new gut lining every few days. You'll have a brand new skeleton every 10 years, and you've got the muscles that move that skeleton every 15 years are completely brand new. You've got your thumbnails. Every 6 months will be completely brand new. There's 100 million red blood cells that are dying off every few minutes and then reborn. And within 3 to 4 months, you'll have a brand new army of red blood cells to help transmit oxygen and nutrients. And here's something I found very, very interesting. You have about 85 billion to 100 billion neurons in your brain, cells in your brain, that are constantly wiring and connecting and forming almost like a bird nest type of beautiful mesh that is sending information down your spinal cord and out into your body at the rate of up to 350 kilometers per hour. Now, it's this information that tells your heart to beat, it tells your gut to digest food, it tells the muscles how to move, it tells you how to balance, it tells you how to think. It's this information that coordinates that cut you've just got on your arm. And this was fascinating to me. So, here's a big question I started asking. If the body can heal, given enough time and the right environment, can we start to overcome conditions that we once thought were incurable? Good question, huh? It was one of my mentors, Dr. James Chestnut, who asked me a question that fundamentally changed my life and set me on the path that I am today and kind of here in front of you. Would you like to hear what it is? Yeah? Okay. If you get a plant and that plant starts to wilt and break just like that, what would you do? How would you help the plant? Water it. Why didn't you say drugs or surgery? It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? See, the thing is, deep down, you know that that plant has the ability to heal itself and that it's just missing out on vital ingredients to do the job, like water or sunlight, maybe the correct soil. You see, in nature, we tend to think along these lines all the time. Even in biology, if an animal species gets sick or becomes endangered, we look at the environment, we look at what's causing the sickness. Yet when we look at the human animal, we don't tend to think along those lines, do we? We think about what's wrong with us. And herein lies the problem. So I gathered all my research, all the best scientific stuff I could find. I did my second big daring thing, which was I packed up my house with my wife and my children. And yes, I moved from Newcastle to Sydney, and we set up a health and wellness studio. I started recruiting people like yoga teachers and personal trainers and chiropractors, food coaches, mindset coaches. And now what we do is we teach people what food should a human animal eat? And what type of movement should a human animal do? And what type of internal environment and external environment around you does a human animal need in order to be well? And we also teach people something very important but often overlooked. We teach people about a healthy, normal spine and a normal functioning nervous system. Why? Because that's the thing that coordinates the healing in the body, isn't it? Watch this. Who can tell me what this thing up here is? Brain. Very good. What are these things here? Excellent. How does the brain, where does the brain send messages down? What's this thing? Spinal cord? Yeah, absolutely. And what is it that protects the spinal cord like a suit of armor? Spine, right. So it was Nobel Prize winning Professor Robert Speary who said that the more mechanically distorted a person is, the less energy they have for thinking, metabolizing, and healing. Just going to do something here. I'm just checking social media. Does this look familiar? In fact, have you ever seen anyone walking around like this saying, I have so much energy right now. I love my life and I'm completely focused on what I'm doing. So I didn't know it at the time, but daring to trust my gut when I was a 17-year-old boy fundamentally changed my life. And I'm going to leave you with a question. When the time comes and you're presented with a choice, are you going to dare to trust your own instincts and your gut and do what you believe is right? Or are you just going to do what everyone else does? Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Bryce Fleming for his wonderful talk about how the innate healing properties of the body is so incredibly important and that we really should be looking after our health and also our mind. So next we have another video to show you, this time a really powerful video from TED at New York City from 2014. The talented speaker and teacher, Clint Smith, talks about the importance through spoken word and also his own talk. And this video is titled The Danger of Silence. Please enjoy.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in a 1968 speech where he reflects upon the civil rights movement, states, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." As a teacher, I've internalized this message. Every day, all around us, we see the consequences of silence manifest themselves in the form of discrimination, violence, genocide, and war. In the classroom, I challenge my students to explore the silences in their own lives through poetry. We work together to fill those spaces, to recognize them, to name them, to understand that they don't have to be sources of shame. In an effort to create a culture within my classroom where students feel safe sharing the intimacies of their own silences, I have 4 core principles posted on the board that sits in the front of my class, which every student signs at the beginning of the year. Read critically, write consciously, speak clearly, tell your truth. I find myself thinking a lot about that last point, tell your truth. And I realized that if I was going to ask my students to speak up, I was going to have to tell my truth and be honest with them about the times where I failed to do so. So I tell them that growing up, as a kid in a Catholic family in New Orleans, during Lent, I was always taught that the most meaningful thing one could do was to give something up, sacrifice something you typically indulge in to prove to God you understand his sanctity. I've given up soda, McDonald's, French fries, French kisses, and everything in between. But one year, I gave up speaking. Figured the most valuable thing I could sacrifice was my own voice, but it was like I hadn't realized that I had given that up a long time ago. I had spent so much of my life telling people the things they wanted to hear instead of the things they needed to. Told myself I wasn't meant to be anyone's conscience because I still had to figure out being my own, so sometimes I just wouldn't say anything. Appeasing ignorance with my silence, unaware that validation doesn't need words to endorse its existence. When Christian was beat up for being gay, I put my hands in my pocket and walked with my head down as if I didn't even notice. Couldn't use my locker for weeks because the bolt on the lock reminded me of the one I had put on my lips when the homeless man on the corner looked at me with eyes up, merely searching for an affirmation that he was worth seeing. I was more concerned with touching the screen of my Apple than actually feeding him one. When the woman at the fundraising gala said, "I'm so proud of you. It must be so hard teaching those poor, unintelligent kids," I bit my lip because apparently we needed her money more than my students needed their dignity. We spend so much time listening to the things people are saying that we rarely pay attention to the things they don't. Silence is the residue of fear. It is feeling your flaws gut-wrench guillotine your tongue. It is the air retreating from your chest because it doesn't feel safe in your lungs. Silence is Rwandan genocide. Silence is Katrina. It is what you hear when there aren't enough body bags left. It is the sound after the noose is already tied. It is charring. It is chains. It is privilege. It is pain. There is no time to pick your battles when your battles have already picked you. I will not let silence wrap itself around my indecision. I will tell Christian that he is a lion, a sanctuary of bravery and brilliance. I will ask that homeless man what his name is and how his day was, because sometimes all people want to be is human. I will tell that woman that my students can talk about transcendentalism like their last name was Thoreau, and just because you watch one episode of The Wire doesn't mean you know anything about my kids. So this year, instead of giving something up, I will live every day as if there were a microphone tucked under my tongue, a stage on the underside of my inhibition. Because who has to have a soapbox when all you've ever needed is your voice? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Annie, and wow, what a powerful message in just a couple of minutes. It really goes to show that even though silence can seem suffocating, speaking up and using our voice is something that we all can and should do. Daring to speak up is something that is definitely embodied by our next speaker. As a successful journalist, television presenter, newsreader, and now mother, Talitha Cummins' story is one of resilience. She is a passionate advocate for health, particularly mental health, as a member of the HIMS Australia Advisory Group and the Every Mind Initiative, which encourages responsible reporting of mental illness and suicide. As well as this, she is an ambassador for the charity Hello Sunday Morning, working towards creating awareness around substance abuse and alcohol dependence. Her story and experience is an incredible one, so please give it up for the beautiful Talitha Cummins.
Thank you very much. I want to begin by showing you a picture. This is me, age 32, sitting at a desk, reading the news to people across the country. A respectable journalist, a white-collar worker, an employee with a public profile who spent the July every year holidaying in Europe, Mykonos, Santorini, Paris, you name it. I went there. I lived in a fancy suburb, and I even had enough money left after my Euro holidays to buy 2 houses by the age of 28. I mean, look at me. I look so polished and professional. To anyone looking at that picture, they would think that I was living the dream. Except that I wasn't. In reality, I was trapped in a nightmare. Because what that picture doesn't show is my chronic inner turmoil. I hated myself. I felt unworthy of my role and my friends. And I was using alcohol to bury my deep insecurities. I thought alcohol made me a better me, and I was in complete denial that I was an active and functional alcoholic, and it nearly killed me. Growing up, I was a shy and introverted young girl. I was the kind of girl who didn't have birthday parties because I didn't want to be the focus of attention. I felt awkward talking about myself, and I was drawn to louder people who did all the talking for me. For a long time, my inner monologue was, everyone's better than you, and you don't deserve this. I had my first proper alcohol binge at the age of 14. My friends and I were going to a dance party, and we sat in a park drinking vodka mixers beforehand. And I can still remember that first taste. It was like the world lit up. At once, I became this person that I'd always wanted to be. Confident, funny, life of the party, outgoing. I even had things to say. Talitha had arrived. The theme for today's event is dare, and I think that night might be the first time I felt daring, but it certainly wasn't of the inspiring kind. The alcohol gave me a cloak of invincibility and allowed me to continually dare myself to transform into someone else. That binging continued throughout my teenage years and really ramped up when I began my career as a television journalist. It got steadily worse. It became my emotional crutch. I was a naturally timid young lady working in a career which required me to be the exact opposite. Well, they say your first live TV experience is up there with heart surgery and Last Judgment Day. Yes, I know it's not a real life or death experience, but let me tell you, I certainly felt like my vital organs were going to fail me at times. Let me talk you through it, and I'll try not to have a panic attack just remembering back to that time. I'm sitting behind the news desk in the studio, bright lights shining in my face, a director talking into my ear. There's a 10-second countdown, and I realise the doors to the studio are closed. There's silence throughout, and I start to hear that big bolshy news music that I've heard in different iterations since I was a kid playing. And then I recognise everything hangs on me. And it's simply terrifying. And of course, I've got all of this going through my head while I'm trying to act composed and pretend that everything's okay. I'm pleased to report that I did survive. I managed to get my first news bulletin out in comprehensive English and no major stumbles. But the second I walked into my door at home, I collapsed into myself. I remember drinking a bottle of wine pretty quickly, and it didn't even touch the sides. The adrenaline was just coursing through my body. Now, up until that point, I'd usually drink alcohol before a social situation, but this was the first time I used it after to celebrate a milestone in my career, and it felt amazing. It really emboldened me, and from that moment, all of the boundaries started to fade away. Booze was my saviour. It was my friend that I'd wheel out in any circumstances, social, parties, and to de-stress. Let's face it, as Aussies, it's a central part of our social engagements. And at the time, I just could not comprehend living without it. But soon my friend turned on me. Now, I don't know whether it happened gradually or very quickly, but I got to the point where I was coming home and drinking multiple bottles of wine every night. And when you're doing that, the embarrassing incidents in public begin to pile up. Among some of the shameful, being carried out of a media awards dinner and being hospitalised more than a number of times. One afternoon I read the 4:30 news and I went for a drink with a friend, and woke up on the pavement the next morning out the front of a terrace in Paddington. The emotional cycle of an alcoholic is depressingly repetitive and predictable. Step 1, drink until you pass out. Step 2, wake up the next morning and immediately start drowning in self-hatred and shame. Step 3, promise yourself you'll never get that drunk again. Step 4, forget step 3 and stay home and get really drunk by yourself where no one else can judge you. And return to step 1, wash, rinse and repeat every night. The tipping point for me was when work intervened. There was a weekend where I didn't turn up for work 2 days in a row. And on the Monday morning, the chief of staff at the TV network sat me down and just said, "You're not okay, are you?" And I said, "No." I mean, what else could I say? I had tried so hard and for so long to stop drinking, but I realised this time that it was serious. I decided that night to go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in the city. I was told of one for business people that was recommended to me. I was almost as nervous as I was before reading my first news bulletin. It was terrifying walking in there, of owning up to an addiction that I'd been trying to hide from people for so long. But I sat in the corner hoping no one would notice me, but that's not how AA works. They told their stories of despair and recovery, and these people were strikingly respectable, honest, and selfless. I learnt that night that alcoholics are obsessed with alcohol and can't control how much they drink, no matter what it's doing in their home life, their work, or financially. I recognised myself in their stories, and it was really the jolt that I needed, and the first step on a long journey of sobriety, and I was 33 years old. I was diagnosed with depression soon after that first AA meeting. Psychiatrists, medication, exercise, meditation, avoiding social situations, that all became the new norm for me. It's said that an addict stops maturing at the age that they start abusing their substance, and for me that was 14, around the same age or not much older than most of you in this room. So I had a lot of growing up to do. And I realised that without the substance, alcohol, in my life, it was a terrifying realisation, really, that I had no idea who I was or what I was made of. For so long, I thought that I was the person that I was when I was drunk. So my new challenge and my new dare to myself was getting to know who I was without alcohol. So I started to say yes to situations that I'd normally run 100 miles from. Sometimes I was restless in the days and weeks leading up to them, but I pushed myself into those environments and I could really start to feel myself growing and maturing through each one, and it was so incredibly satisfying. And it taught me that confidence can be a learned behaviour. Without the fog of alcohol, I saw clearly who was important in my life, and those who weren't faded away. After an exhaustive process of self-discovery, I now realise there is goodness inside me, that I am a good person and that I am good enough. I've learned to challenge that voice in my head that tells me that I'm unworthy and that I don't deserve anything. To be honest, that never actually goes away entirely. The difference is now that I know how to fight back and stop those insecurities from taking hold. Now, this new me has led me on a path to advocacy work. I am an ambassador for Hello Sunday Morning, as you heard, which is an organisation trying to change the culture of drinking in Australia, to make it so that it's a choice and not an expectation. I now have a little bubba, as you can see, and a little girl on the way, due at Christmas, and I hope that by the time they're drinking age, that this becomes a cultural norm for them. Through speaking out, I want to smash the stereotypes around addiction so that more people seek help. An alcoholic or addict can be anyone. It can be your mother, your doctor, your sister, your father. Addiction doesn't discriminate. For so long, I used alcohol as a crutch because I thought it made me a better person. And now I hear so often many people telling me that they didn't like the Talitha who drank. So my message to you today is to get to know who you are, understand what you are made of, where your strengths are, where your weaknesses lie, and embrace all of it, and dare to be who you truly are. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anne, and wasn't that an incredible talk from Talitha? Thank you so much for sharing your extraordinary story with us, one that I'm sure is hard to tell. Our final speaker has dared to found her own not-for-profit organization at the age of 16, after caring for her mother, who is diagnosed with breast cancer, and her brother, who is plagued by a myriad of health conditions. Her organization, Little Dreamers Australia, supports siblings and young carers whose parents or family members may be suffering from chronic or mental illnesses, disabilities, or addictions. On top of this, she was named as one of the Queen's Young Leaders of 2017 for her incredible passion, resilience, and leadership, changing the lives of more than 1,000 patients and carers. Please welcome the amazing Maddie Buckner.
I went home when I was 9 years old and asked my parents if I could start my own business. My parents could have said so many things to me. They could have said, no, let's wait until you're a bit older. They could have said, we don't have time for that right now. And actually, that last excuse would have made the most sense. You see, my brother, my little brother, was in and out of hospital about 8 to 10 times a year growing up. And more often than not, I felt like my parents and my family didn't really have a huge amount of time for me. And so that first, we don't have time for that, would have made the most sense. However, my parents said, okay. They said, what can we do to help? And that first okay, I think, is the reason that I am standing here in front of you today, closing out your inspirational day with a final 10 minutes about daring to be different. About daring to follow the beat of your own drum, and about daring to go against what other people tell you you should be doing. Because I promise you that if you do, it will take you to some absolutely phenomenal and unexpected places. My name is Maddie, and this is me. I was 6 years old when I decided to cut off my long piggy-tail plaits with a pair of kindergarten scissors. My mum was not happy. If you were to ask my parents what I was like when I was little, they would say that I was complex. Growing up with a very sick little brother and a very unwell mum made me a very different child to how everyone else was when I was at school. From a very young age, I knew how to pack his medicine bag, I knew how to pack his things for the hospital, I knew what blanket he needed, what pajamas he needed, and what teddy and pup he needed to take with him. I was never taught how to do his medicine. I was never taught how to ring an ambulance. But somehow, these are just things that I innately knew how to do. I was that girl in primary school whose parents weren't there to watch her at sports day because they were at the hospital with my brother. I was that kid who had to do her homework by torchlight and lift the kitchen chair rather than scrape it back along the floor because my brother had really bad migraines. I was tuned into my brother. I knew exactly what he needed when he needed it. I would tiptoe up and down the hallway in the middle of the night, checking on him, checking on his breathing, and waking my parents up at the slightest sign of something being wrong. I don't remember the first time my brother went to hospital, but I do remember the first time I realized what I was good at. I was 8 years old, and I was standing outside my childhood home selling bouncy balls to raise money for charity. I don't remember the first time my brother had a seizure, but I do remember the first time I ran a fundraiser. I was 9 years old. It was a party at the Plaster Funhouse in Melbourne for 50 people, and we raised $500 for the brothers and sisters of sick kids. I don't remember the number of times that I ran away from home as a teenager, but I do remember the first time I realized that I had the attention of a whole community. I was 16 years old and launching my second business, Little Dreamers Australia. Today, 9 years later, we are Australia's leading young carer support organisation. We run best practice programs around the world to support kids with a parent, brother or sister with a serious illness or disability. I graduated from Brighton Secondary College in Melbourne in 2010, and I was school captain. In fact, I was captain of everything. From a very young age, all I wanted to do was stand in the spotlight and make a difference. And at my school, I graduated in the top 10% of my class. And when I was in year 11, much like you guys today, I went and sat down with my year 11 career counsellor, and we decided what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I was really loving health and human development at the time. In particular, I loved learning about food and how food can contribute to your health and well-being, and how that differs around the world. So naturally, I applied for a Bachelor of Health Sciences majoring in nutrition. I lasted 1 semester. For the next 2 years, I tried 2 different degrees at 2 different universities and ended up back at my high school with my year 12 media teacher talking about why I felt like such a failure. According to the way that everyone had set me up, I should have known exactly what I wanted to do. 2 years out of high school, I should have had around 1 to 2 years left of my university degree, and I should have been right on track to get my dream job. That's what I felt like everyone had expected of me. Now, everyone knew that I'd started my own business when I was 16. My year 11 and 12 career counsellor knew that I had little dreams on the side. So why was this never taken into consideration when we were talking about dream jobs? I was presented with doctor, lawyer, teacher, psychologist, when none of those titles really sat well with me. Founder and CEO were never presented to me as legitimate career paths. But what if they had been? I went on to study a Bachelor of Business majoring in marketing, and I was a fantastic student. I was regularly in class stressed, tired, and overwhelmed. My assignments were always late, but I never asked for an extension because I thought that's just what you had to do. I would be in class every day learning about marketing plans for orange juice, going home to work at a boarding school overnight, and then sending emails to potential donors at 2 o'clock in the morning for my growing startup. And still, while I was at university, we were presented with become an intern, get a grad position, work as a brand assistant, an executive, and finally sometime, maybe, a head of brand at a big multinational corporation. These things didn't really sit with me. I didn't really want to work my way up when I had this growing business on the side. I wanted to be hustling with heart and leading with passion and purpose. I want to talk about some of my favourite entrepreneurs for a second. Taj Pabari founded his first business when he was 11 years old. Rosie Thomas from Project Rocket founded her business straight out of high school. And Jordan O'Reilly went to university to study occupational therapy, only to never work as an OT, but rather found a very successful nonprofit and then a for-profit, for-purpose business based on personal experience. None of these people followed typical career progression paths, and every single one of them is now inspiring millions of people around Australia and around the world. So what if we started processing entrepreneur and CEO as legitimate career paths? What if these were presented to students today as something that they could be doing? How do we make entrepreneurship something that is easier and more accessible, and something that is acceptable around our family dinner table? And firstly, I think we need to make the word entrepreneurship a little easier to say. So, I'm going to share with you my 5 tips and things that I've learned along the way to help me get to this point where I think that I can tell people that my dream job is to be my own boss, not such a scary alternative. Number 1, make passion part of your everyday. You should be passionate about what you do, but found something you're really good at but not so passionate about? That's okay. Find a way to bring passion and purpose into your everyday. Become an intrapreneur and make your office a dog-friendly office. Become a volunteer, read the news, stay up to date, and teach people about things that you love, and make sure that you are happy every single day. Number 2, learn to let go. Learn to let go of the fear of making mistakes. Let go of people holding you back. Let go of bad relationships, but most importantly, let go of the expectations that you have that you don't think meet up with what everyone else expects of you. Follow your own path and make sure that you live up to your own expectations rather than everyone else's. Number 3, don't be afraid. It's really easy to walk down a path that has been walked down before because we know that it turns out okay. We've seen everyone else do it. We know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But the best things happen when you walk down your own path because you don't know what you're going to find. You may find some new friends, a successful idea. You may even find a member of One Direction in Buckingham Palace. Who knows? But I can promise you, with a hand on my heart, that whatever you choose, it is incredibly exciting. Number 4, dare to be different. Stand out, because the best people do. And number 5, trust the timing. I'm 25 years old. I have friends who've moved out of home. I have friends that have bought their own homes. I have friends that are still living in their childhood bedrooms. I have friends that have kids, that are married, that are divorced, some that are single, some that are dating. I have friends all over Australia, backpacking around the world, and some who've never left the country. I have some friends who are still in university, some that are in their dream job, and some that have absolutely no idea what they're doing. And that's okay. Everyone's path follows a different journey and a different timing, but trust your own timing because it's there for a reason. I am now running Australia's leading young carer support organisation, working with 4,000 young people per year across the country. I lead a team of 4 fierce and powerful women working towards improving the quality of life for young carers and young people caring for a family member. Every single day, we work towards a big goal, actually a big, hairy, audacious goal of ensuring that every single young carer around the world is supported by someone or something by 2030. And if we worked every day and we spent every day thinking about how big that goal is, we would get no work done. But if we take every single day, one day at a time, every child, one at a time, we will poke our head up out of the work one day and realize that we're a lot further along than we think we are. No journey is ever simple, and no path is ever straightforward. But I can promise you that everything that you do can lead to some extraordinary places. So trust it, because the world really is our oyster. Thank you.
Finishing off TEDxYouth Abbotsleigh as our last speaker. It really goes to show how we can never be really too young to follow our dreams and really make a difference. To close off TEDxYouth Abbotsleigh 2018, we'll be having one last daring performance. It's a string quartet of Abbotsleigh instrumentalists with Cheryl Kwan, Stella Leonardi, Jessica Tam, and Lindsay Kim. While they're setting up, I will hand over to Stella, who will tell us a bit more about what they'll be playing today.
Thanks, Tash. All right, so Cheryl, Jess, Lindsay and I, today we're going to be playing String Quartet number 8 by Dmitri Shostakovich, a piece that the composer dedicated to the victims of fascism, including himself. This performance is certainly daring, as you'll find out, firstly because it's extremely technically demanding and forces us to take risks while we play, and secondly because it is so difficult to try and encapsulate the horror and terror that the composer was writing about, although, as Cheryl reminds us, the impending HSC performance exam may come close. So we hope you are as gripped by this Russian existentialism as we are. Enjoy.
What a way to close off TEDxYouth at Abbotsleigh with a bang. Thank you so much, girls, for playing that amazing piece, and we wish you best of luck with your HSC performance. So, it has been a rather spectacular day. 7 speakers, 3 performers, and 2 videos in the space of a few hours. I hope you've been inspired and as excited as I am, and that you leave this room more motivated and keen to make a difference based on these ideas that you've heard today. Before I like to give my thank yous, I just want to remind everyone that all of these talks and performances will be available to watch after the event on video, and we'll let you know when they come out if you wish to relive the highlights and share it with your friends and family. Firstly, I'd like to thank all the amazing speakers and performers for giving up their time, practicing, rehearsing, and making a wonderful day all for us. Secondly, I'd like to thank all of the special guests, especially people from other schools. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you've had a wonderful time here. And also, I'd like to thank all the amazing girls in the TEDx committee and the supporting teachers, Mr. Ford, Mrs. Moffat, and Ms. Kopolinsky, as well as all the AV team for making this day possible, because without them, we wouldn't have had this event. And lastly, I just want to thank you guys, the audience. Thank you for your interest and your enthusiasm in coming here today and your desire to learn more, and as well as everyone watching on live stream. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. I hope today has resonated with you and with stories, ideas, and even performances staying inside your mind. I dare you to try something new with these ideas. To all the Abbotsleigh girls, assembly will be starting soon in like 10-20 minutes. So we will have the opportunity to hear from some of the speakers from session 2 on a panel led by Edwina Bartholomew. And if you still have any more questions, feel free to write it on a slip of paper and put it in our box just inside the doors. So, to close our first ever, and hopefully not the last, TEDxYouth at Abbotsleigh 2018, I just wanted to leave you guys with one more dare. Dare to share what you have learnt. Dare to work and act on the ideas that are buzzing right now in your head. Use this inspiration to do something, whether that's just outside the hall or later at home. And in the end, the most important thing that we want you guys to do is to have the courage to dare to do something that you wouldn't normally think you would be able to do today. So thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure.